Victoria 3 is a grand strategy game created by Paradox Interactive, but it isn't your typical Paradox game. In most of their strategy games, war is a pretty big deal. The Victorian era did see a lot of shooting, but war is not going to be your main concern in this game. Victoria tasks you with building a nation by shaping its laws, economy, people, and institutions. It can be called a society builder. It wants you to care about the minutiae of political movements, distribution of power, population trends, economic organization, factory output, or global trade, and then to start manipulating them. Victoria 3 is a game about economy and a game about balancing, which an economy obviously needs. You have a big list of goods and groups of people or pops that will be using those goods. If you don't have enough of something in your economy, they'll be paying more than the base price of that item. They won't be happy about that, especially for staple goods, the ones they need to survive. Victoria 3 is really complex and, like other Paradox games, really detailed simulated. The downside to this complexity is the long learning curve and the hard entry to this game. The tutorial goes some way to explain many of the game's central concepts, but you can expect to be reading quite a lot of tooltips, messing around with buttons, and maybe even loading up an old autosave to avoid joining a war that ends up totally destroying your economy. But as always, the more you invest, the more you get out of this game. With no further introduction, let me present you the top 10 reasons why you should play Victoria 3. The first reason is your impact based on your decisions. Almost every nation can be shaped into whatever you wish it should be. Imagine the following scenario. It is the year 1836, and you are given control of any nation on the globe. You are not the king or another high-ranking dignitary. You pull the strings in the background and shape the economy, society, and diplomacy with your decisions. This is exactly the premise behind Victoria 3. The tasks ahead of you could hardly be greater, as you have 100 virtual years to make your mark on your nation. How you go about it is entirely up to you. Will you be aggressive imperialists and invade neighboring states? Will you develop your state into an international economic power? Or will you turn it into a paradise for free spirits and intellectuals? If you want to turn the US into a liberal utopia, you can. Fancy driving the Catholics out of Rome? Entirely possible. You could even conquer the entirety of Europe as Wales if you so wished. That one is a bit of an uphill battle, though. The flexibility that you have in developing your nation as you wish is one of its greatest strengths. Another good reason why you should play this game is its political game. Do you want to play politics and show how it's done right? Here is your chance. Victoria 3 is a fantastic political simulation. Micromanaging your laws and taking steps to ensure they're passed is a challenging yet gratifying mechanic. It's in the simulation of how a society is governed where the game is at its best, drawing you deeper and deeper in. Your governments are based on laws that are sets of options which cover diverse topics, such as how your economy is structured and who gets to vote. Changing laws requires the support of interest groups. These groups, like landholders, armed forces, trade unions, industrialists, religious authorities, and many more, try to push their agendas, forming dynamic political parties that give you always a lot to think about what law should be next established. Reason number 3 why you should start to play this game is its huge world economy playground. This game also has done a good job to implement an excellent economic management simulation. If you don't know your basic economic theory by now, you will after a few hours grappling with the markets in this game. A few more hours and you'll be micromanaging tariffs like a pro, handing out embargoes and developing your fleet of trade convoys to handle your trade routes over water. Keeping a handle on your supply chains is probably the most important mechanic to learn, and it's very satisfying to master. Being able to change the workforce or the production methods of your businesses and factories to suit your current needs adds a great layer of strategy to the game. You don't always want to hoard wealth. You can run a deficit for a few years, then build up a reserve, or nearly bankrupt yourself fighting world wars before entering years of austere recovery. And if you're missing some important goods, you can look abroad and start exploiting less developed nations. Reason number 4 is for all players who love sandbox games. When you think about Victoria 3 and what to expect, you should be aware that this game is a typical sandbox. There is no campaign, and there are no goals to win this game. Instead, you get a complex simulation of the world during the industrialization and need to set up your own goals and things you want to achieve. Of course, you get some guidelines in form of journal entries who give you some hints and lead you through possible development stages of your country. You could, for instance, set your goal to become the richest country in the world with no social health system and a strong police and army to secure the rich. Or you can build a society with social care, free elections, and education for poor and rich people. The replay value is defined by these opportunities in this sandbox simulation game. Every nation has its limitations and starting benefits, from strategic resources like gold and oil or an already built railroad system. If you do not like how the world is and was, then you can shape in this society builder your dream nation and influence the world with your decisions. Number 5, why you should play Victoria 3 is the interesting diplomatic game mechanic. Eventually, of course, you'll have to deal with conflicts both domestic and international. These conflicts aren't always armed ones, however, and many take place across the negotiating table. In order to do most things, you make a diplomatic play. This can lead to several outcomes. For example, you can claim a state controlled by another country as yours, demand another nation submit as a puppet regime, force others to adopt specific laws. You make demands, the other side makes counter demands, and outside nations either stay neutral or get bribed to pick a side. If nobody folds before the timer runs out, that means war. Sometimes you want to conquer a small country due to their natural resources, and during the diplomatic play, you get surprised by a world-leading country that also has interest in this area and steps in on the opposing countryside. This means that if you want to go to war, you should think twice and sometimes need enough backup and alliances. In order to get the feeling of leader in your nation, warfare is fought indirectly. With reasons number 6 in the war management, Victoria provides you a good solution best fitting for this game. Militaries are managed abstractly, with your armies run by generals assigned to fronts. You can give them several orders, for instance, to let them hold the line or try to advance and capture territory. It's actually a pretty fitting simulation of 19th century warfare, at least from a politician's chair, because it's about hoping the army you've built, the equipment you've produced, and the person you've picked to lead it can bring you victory. Reason number 7 to pick this game is its continuous content update policy. As a typical Paradox game, this game is supported since launch with free and paid content and also will be supported years to come. Update 1.5 is so far the biggest update for Victoria 3 to date and brings extensive changes in the areas of military, economy, and diplomacy. The new Colossus of the South Region Pack focuses on South America, in particular the Amazon region. It will offer a number of narrative elements and challenges centered on the cultures and resources of South America. Since patch 1.5, the war system is working great and makes a lot of fun. Also, the economy changes give you a lot more options to build your industry and profit from local prices. Victoria 3 is currently in a good state and is expected to grow over the next years to an even more complex economy game. You love numbers and statistics? Then this game is for you. Reason number 8 is its love for detail and numbers. Victoria 3 is good looking, but the magic and the whole simulation is based on a lot of numbers and facts that are presented in endless charts and pop-ups. If you want to have fun with Victoria 3, you need to love numbers and looking up the reasons to explain, for instance, the reduced 5% in taxes in a sub-menu somewhere, only to find more references and pop-ups to navigate further into the web of tax relationships. And this works for almost every number and info your nation consists of. This game is for people who don't need fancy animations and see everything happening on the screen. Instead, they imagine this whole world happening in their head and accept that only parts of the representation are visible on screen. If your fantasy is to take control of a nation and set your own goals, build your own society, and play around with complex, interlocking systems, it will fulfill that brilliantly. The internal life of your nation is rich, and for much of the game, that's where your focus will be, up to your neck in domestic politics and squabbling pops. Reason 9 why you should play Victoria 3 is that this game is a relaxing one. You can pause the game at any time and take your time you need. Do you want to find the perfect diplomatic partner country? No worries, pause the game and search for it. Do you want to calculate the benefit of a new food fabric? Of course, Slow the game down or stop it until you're ready. The user interface itself is quite attractive. The stepless map reveals pretty details, such as moving trains and minor conflicts in close-up. If you zoom out, on the other hand, you can see the individual provinces in larger nations and select them. If you zoom out completely, you can finally see your desk and map. Overall, when you set the game speed to slow, you have enough time to enjoy and read everything and won't be disturbed by notifications every minute. The last reason why you should try this game is its education value. The first few lessons with Victoria 3 feel like extra tuition in an advanced history course. With Victoria 3, you get the chance to experience the industrialization and reasons and effects of decisions that have to be made. It is like an interactive tutoring for history. You see what technology has to be researched until a colonization in Africa is possible and to fight malaria. It is great to get to know the past of our world a little bit better by playing a fun simulation game like Victoria 3 and step in and make your own decisions and see how this is working out. Playing Vicotria is like taking a history lesson, but more fun and more interactive. Maybe you will learn some stuff for your next history discussion.